What do you say about anti-Semitism in America?
I worry about it. I must say it's harder for me to answer that question today than it would have been 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I would have told you it's still quite small and people have to just push back and treat most of it as ignorance. I still think that's the case, but it has a momentum now that's troubling. As somebody who taught on campuses and was working as an administrator on campuses, I'm hoping the end of the school year gives a chance for a break. You have the first day of school, we're approaching the last day of school, and I couldn't come soon enough.
Because there are outside forces instigating.
There are outside forces instigating. Even on campus, the protesters aren't all students. But it's easy to whip up emotion amongst young people. And the facts are hard here, the war is hard, and people don't listen. They don't hear the history, they don't hear the explanation. And as I've told people here, you have to spend more effort communicating with people because your enemies are spending a lot of effort communicating. And there's two wars. There's a war on the battlefield and a war for ideas. And Israel has to be in both places. We try to be helpful, but ultimately there is the facts on the ground. If the war comes to an end or phases down, it should get easier to see this pass. And then we'll see how deep the change is. It would break my heart if American Jews a year from now feel unsafe. I think right now the line between being afraid and being unsafe are different. I hope we don't come to a place where they're the same. I think a lot of people feel unsafe, but they're safe. If that makes sense.
On the campus, you're not so safe, that's really true.
Look, right now on the campus, nobody is safe. There's a mob taking over, and that is something, it's aimed at people who support Israel, it's aimed more broadly at Jews, and that makes you especially feel unsafe. But one of the reasons, and the President spoke to this yesterday when he spoke on Yom HaShoah, that we can't accept lawlessness in our country. And there can be differences, but they can't be differences that threaten people, and nobody should have to be afraid of being who they are in the United States of America. So I don't think there's been a sea change, but it's a very scary moment. And it's real. There is anti-Semitism behind it. It doesn't take that much, as we know from history.
Anti-Semitism was always in there.
It's always there.
It was like, more came down. Before the war, in the 30s, it was all the signs, no dogs and Jews allowed.
My father, who was born in Europe and grew up in New York, was a student at the time when Jews were allowed to go some places that they hadn't been allowed to go before. And he went to law school at a time when he couldn't have gone a year before. So it's part of my family memory.
When I was a kid, I remember on the east side, I was attacked sometimes. Dirty Jews, that was part of the Italians.
Yeah. My grandchildren feel comfortable wearing a kippah and tzitzit. That's different than when I was their age.
Now it went back. What happened was after the war, with 6 million Jews, everybody was like very nice to the Jews. Now we're going back to the 30s.
I don't think we're back to the 30s. I think we have to be aware that if we're not careful, we can go back to the 30s, which is why there's a need to speak out on the subject and push back. I'm afraid people are going to run away. I think running away is not the answer. You have to confront it. Not fighting, but confront it with, calling it what it is and challenging it intellectually. Because I don't think most Americans subscribe to anti-Semitism or in general broad bias. I think right now there's a confusion. If people don't like the war, then therefore. And that's dangerous. It would be helpful if the war would come to an end. But I'm completely, honestly, 2 weeks ago, I would not have expressed the same thing. 2 weeks ago, I would have said it's much more isolated. I hope a year from now, I'm back saying it's not isolated.
Very nice meeting you.
My pleasure. Thank you.